So with episode 10 of Delicious in Dungeon, we have reached a very crucial point. We actually have reached the Red Dragon, which I thought we were actually much further off, but we are starting the fight in episode 11. But with the start of that fight comes a lot of concerns about if they can do it, because their overall game plan is actually pretty solid. If a dragon can only be hurt by the underneath of their neck, therefore you need to get it down. So a big stun spell might work, but if it's immune to magic, if it's immune to pretty much all melee and that type of physical damage, there's not a lot of ways to kill a big red dragon unless it was already sleeping. So we're in a location where it's kind of marching along and there's a lot of buildings that we could probably crumple and tumble them on, make it get knocked out or at least pinned down so we could do some attacks. In theory, not a bad idea, but either a couple of things might happen in my mind. Either A, this dragon's about to get killed and it realizes it needs to get out of there, so it runs away and forces the cast to go deeper into the dungeon, which will just make it all the more deadly for them, and they probably won't have a similar situation in order to trap him. Maybe they end up defeating it, and we just go in a completely new direction with the show. I mean, in this episode, they actually start talking about the Elven and Dwarven storyline, and there is a future narrative seemingly being set up there, but at the same time, we might also lose a character or two along the way. Sure, as long as we get their bodies, we can revive them, but there's a lot of ways for bodies to go missing. Whether that's being digested in a red dragon's stomach, the body sank into the body of water and no one knows it's there, crumbled. There's a lot of buildings that could fall on people. There's just a lot of ways that this could go wrong, and I will be shocked if it goes completely smoothly. If it does, I will be cheering for them. I just think after the past few episodes, I'm expecting the worst, and given that this is a 2-core, I feel like that red dragon is going to be packing a mean punch, but I guess we'll see. I have a full live reaction to this week's episode of Delicious in Dungeon over on my Patreon if you want to see my full and good thoughts. They're over there if you're interested. Honestly, I don't know if I'm just desensitized at this point. Maybe it's just naturally the ingredients aren't as weird to me, but damn, the food the past couple of weeks hasn't been half bad. While I'm not really one to partake in the frog eating of this world, honestly, the way they cooked up that frog in this episode, not too shabby. And hell, the vines and stuff that were growing on the walls, immediately I was like, oh, that's just gonna be a vegetable, isn't it? They made some pasta out of those bad boys, they sauteed them. The food wasn't half bad, that's all I'm saying. Though I really liked what they did with the frogs, though I do have a question about that situation. So these frogs, if you've ever played a video game, you've had at least one of these little bastards. It may not be a frog, but the thing that grabs your damn items, throws it away, or steals it, and then you have to fight it barehanded or do some bullshit to get your items back. It's very, very annoying. So one of the frogs gets dealt with quite quickly, but then the other, the only weapon we seemingly had was Senshi's axe. And Chilchuck had like a pretty good idea, used the frog's flesh, cut it apart, and, you know, was able to use the trap to shoot it. One thing, Chilchuck had a knife in order to cut the frog. Why not cut the frog's tongue? Like, it was already there, he just cut the frog's tongue. Is what it is. We know Senshi has a knife that is apparently stronger than pretty much any other blade out there. Why didn't... All I'm saying is if the frog was immobile for a brief moment with its tongue latched onto it, use the damn knife that you use for cooking or anything else, and cut that frog's tongue, and, you know, it just would have went a little easier. Though, maybe you risk the, it getting free or something, so maybe the shot to the head crossbow is better, but, you know, when Chilchuck almost got ate and sent to his death, I mean, maybe the knife wasn't the worst idea ever. But I like what they did this episode, because honestly, you can kind of feel the gears turning and changing gear just ever so slightly, that, you know, you start this show off with the whole Red Dragon plotline, and they very clearly could defeat the Red Dragon between episodes 11 and 12. If we look at this, if this wasn't a 2-core, you could see a decent stopping point of them succeeding with the Red Dragon storyline and setting up the next adventure. That could very well happen. But at the same time, I don't know. The Red Dragon isn't some pushover. The Red Dragon feels like he's large and in charge. They did mention how strange it was that it's actually roaming around so much, because I guess it would be more normal for it to sit and probably sleep for a long time. So I'm kind of curious if maybe Leos' sister is like, you know, maybe not just as dead in the stomach as we thought. Is it just like she's giving it a tummy ache because she's like attacking it from the inside? Got some indigestion going on? I don't know. But either way, there's definitely a big mystery right now surrounding what is essentially immortality in the form of resurrection. So if you can figure out the secrets and master that, like, that is probably worth more than anything else in this world. All we know as it stands based on last week's episode is if you die in the dungeon, your soul is pretty much chained and attached to your body. As long as the body's there, the soul can be returned to it. So there's ways that you can't be revived. If you're digested, if the body is completely disintegrated and destroyed, or just lost and you can't recover it. I mean, we see in this episode, you know, what's her name ends up going down trying to look for Leos' sister because, you know, there's this whole collection service that, like, hey, if I give you some info, do you have this body? And if you do, you probably pay a fee and then they get brought back. The dungeon workers find a body, sure, it makes it seem like, oh, death isn't around, but there's so many ways death can still happen, as seen by, oh, yeah, your sister? Sure, we're in a dungeon where everyone can be revived. Go kill a giant red dragon in order to get her body back and hope it isn't completely digested. But if you can figure out why this specific area, this dungeon, keeps souls trapped, and if you can utilize that, you pretty much have the secret to immortality at the end of the day. And that's honestly an interesting concept. So I'm going to be interested to see what they do, because they do set it up around the midway point of this episode with the older dwarf who ends up resurrecting everyone last week, and him talking with pretty much his master at this point, or not really a master, but kind of like the guy who has all the money saying, hey, keep investing in, you know, these adventurers, we need to do this. So there is more story at play than just rescuing the sister, which is good, especially if we do end up clearing this red dragon sooner rather than later, and if not, you know, there's other stories that can now happen in the background and develop alongside the cast. While I've seen many people say that it's no longer, you know, worrying because everyone can be brought back, I think I've made my point clear on why I personally disagree with that statement. But honestly, I'm kind of 50-50 if they win this fight. My gut wants to say they do, but I also feel like that dragon's trickier than we think and it's gonna scurry off or something. If we look at the trend of the past couple of episodes, people be getting shot in the head, ate, and everything, and now we're in the big boy territory, and Chilchuk doesn't even want to fight, man, so we're pretty much a three-man army here, but, you know, if a couple of frogs can steal our weapons and almost push our shit in, what the hell is this red dragon gonna do? I don't know. I'm rooting them on. All I know is that I continue to believe that this will be Trigger's magnum opus of anime. It is a manga that perfectly matches their style, and they're giving it that Trigger charm that we all know and love, while also doing something visually that you haven't really seen Studio Trigger do. Sometimes the mannerisms of the characters do like feel, oh, that's a Studio Trigger moment, but I also feel like they're taking a lot more creative risks with how they express a lot of things, and honestly, you love to see it. Let me know what you thought down below. I definitely think this fight isn't going to be as smooth in 1 or 2 episodes as it's making it out to be. If it is, I'll be pleasantly surprised, but let me know how you're feeling, if you think that red dragon's going to go down, or if it's going to scurry off and cause another ruckus for another day. Down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell so you get notified when I upload more. And like I mentioned, we have that full live reaction over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Brittany Henricks, Tade Goldweight, Petalo, One Piece Man, and Peachy Queen. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.